Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of Wellness Warriors. I'm Dr. B, your hostess with the mostest. Today, I am so excited to be able to have Dr. Tom Incledon. He's an amazing guy. I mean, we just met, but excuse me. But I looked at his website before we got started, and I just loved what his website had to say. On his website, you can see things like hashtag cancer won't win, from death sentence to a dead tumor, which is amazing, speaking about a woman with breast cancer. So he's a world-renowned expert in human health and performance. He's the founder and chief scientific officer of Causenta Wellness. And he really has a unique approach to cancer and health in general. He's doing things that have never been done before. He's revolutionized the way with over 40,000 people. And the database that he's collecting about cancer and research is just quite amazing. He has a PhD in physiology, multiple degrees in management, nutrition, and kinesiology. So welcome, Dr. Causenta. I'm so excited to have Dr. Incledon. I'm sorry, because wellness. So excited. Yeah, no, this is going to be great because this is right up our alley. So let's start with the big question that women who are diagnosed with cancer, what are the questions that they should be asking their doctor about cancer?
Sure. Thank you for asking that, because I see so many people that have good intentions, but they ask questions in a way that get them derailed and go down a path that will make sure they never get right, meaning they don't get the right treatments or therapies. And so we produced an ebook. The ebook is available for free, has all these different things in it to make it easier for people so they don't have to write everything down. But there's really two questions that really matter. And the first is, how will you treat the cancer in my body? And the idea behind that is, if you go to a center and they already have a whole treatment model outlined for your plan without knowing your name, you already know you're a number, you're not an individual human being. And the data is very clear that just from two variables, our genetics or genomics and our microbiome, the number of different interactions is so vast that we cannot study one person and predict exactly how the next person will respond. There's just too many possibilities. So every human being alive today is not just unique out of all the people alive. Each individual is so unique. They're the only one like themselves in history of the planet Earth. So it's not like you're one of 7 or 8 billion. You're one of about 50 or 60 billion. So the idea that before we even know who you are, we're going to somehow have this therapy that'll help you in every way, it doesn't really line up with all the data. And there's been sort of this general awareness that there's a point in time where we treated all cancer like it was one thing. And then we learned, wait a minute, there's a difference between the different solid tumors and, so a breast cancer versus a colon cancer. And as time went on, we learned there's different types of breast cancer. And today, now using single cell analysis is actually the realization that even within a single human being, not all the cancer cells are the same. So how could we possibly know what to do? And it raises some questions. Where did all the money for research go? How do we still don't know what we're doing with cancer? So getting back to, your initial question is, the first thing is to get a sense of what's the philosophy of the center, the doctor that you're going to. How are they going to make sure they do the right thing for the cancer growing in your body if you're the person asking these questions? And the second one that's really, really important is, what will you do when it doesn't work? Because everybody always asks a question, well, what's your success rate? And the problem with that line of thinking is it now makes you a number, not an individual human being. And what we know is, if you walk through the door and we get a home run with you, that doesn't mean the next person that walks through the door is a home run. There could be unique mutations in their cancer cells that make them so rare, there may not be an easy weapon to treat their cancer. So the problem with cancer diagnosis, it's geographically biased. It's not up to par with all the latest science telling us in your own body, there's different types of cancer cells. So which ones are you going to kill first? There's no testing for that that's commercially available right now. So really just two questions. And that just then helps the patient or potential patient see, am I in the right place? Because what most people would find out is after you're told how you'll be treated, you realize your number, you're not an individual human being, and then you'll find out there's no plan B. If the first treatment doesn't work, then the next place, the next thing is go to hospice or good luck with everything. And that's really then not where you want to invest your time or money or resources. Find a place that's going to give you more options from the very beginning, so you're not kicked to the curb when things don't work later on.
No, I really love that approach, and recognizing that the doctor is working for you, and so you have the right to refuse treatment or to get another opinion, and ask questions about what this is going to do to your body. Now, so how do you individualize the treatment path for the patients that come and see you at your center?
So the first step is to see what they already had done. We're usually not going to do things that didn't work. So if someone, let's say, we would look at their medical records and see what tests were done. Any of the patients that come here have tests that were done that are, let's just say, older versions, and they're not as robust as some of the newer methods. So an example, maybe they had a genomics test done and it was 3 genes, and there's now options to do 400 genes. Maybe they didn't have any vitamin mineral testing, or what I hear a lot of people say once they have cancer is that I have to strengthen my immune system. And then when I look at their medical records, there's never been any real workup of their immune system done. So I have to point out, they don't really know what's going on with their immune system at that point. They're guessing. And when you're talking about a life and death matter, we want to eliminate guesswork as much as possible. We want to get away from general theories and generalizations to more accurate statements. So like a car, you might say, all car engines need oil unless it's an electric motor, right? But if it's a gas engine, it needs oil. But at this moment, your car may not need oil, right? Because it has an adequate level of oil. And it's the same thing with measuring things in the human body. So once we look at their records, we would recommend some tests, and then we assess their brain, we assess the neurological system, we assess their current state of fitness, because there's a glaring weakness in medicine, and that is it lumps everything under the label called a diagnosis. And there's never been any data that distinguishes lack of use and a disease process in a one individual at the same time. So some examples would be historically, this dates back to the 1930s and the 1950s, when a woman was pregnant and she's put on bed rest for 2 months and then gets out of the hospital and she can't move, they would say, look how stressful having a baby is. And then lo and behold, somebody said, wait a minute, before hospitals, we never had these problems. So what did we create? And they prevented women from moving out of fear. And now today, a woman has a baby and she's out in the same day, right? It's not considered a big deal, but people forget there was a time that never happened. Same thing with different surgery years ago. The surgery is a little bit more invasive because they didn't have some of the methods available today. But people put on bed rest, they would get weaker. They would lose control of their circulation or their balance or some other physiological parameter. And then when they start getting out of bed and they're dizzy and falling, they would say, wow, that disease was really bad. And they never looked at the fact they weren't moving. So we have lots of people that have come here in wheelchairs. Most of them are walking the same day they get here. And the reason is we look at how is their brain controlling their body. And now we might use electricity, we might use magnetic fields, but we basically help connect the brain to their body parts. And then if we then get the results we're looking for, then we get them actually exercising and moving. And the goal is we want them getting stronger. Now, in terms of how do we know, does someone get more light and more magnetic field and so forth? We have competent professionals here that are working with them, and they know how the story goes, right? So if you came in and I do something and I don't see the result I was looking for, I'm going to try other therapies until I see the result I'm looking for. And we have no fear of rearranging the building. We'll take equipment from one end of the building and move it to the gym or move it to another side. So that way we create like a local environment that's conducive to that person getting better. So we've have all kinds of magnetic fields and light systems, electrical systems in the gym. So we can, load your body with the weight and at the same time do something else that's, let's say, might be more on the modality or medical side. So we're leveraging two or three things happening at the same time. And then as people see their body changing, that it gives them a lot more hope and positive reinforcement to keep doing what they're doing. And then while this is going on, we have the results from a lab test we did earlier coming in. And now we start to tweak things. Let's say if vitamin mineral levels came back, now the doctors here manipulate the IVs so you get what you need and not stuff you already have plenty of. So we're kind of better. We're moving from somewhat general to more precise strategies as that data from your body comes in. So you could have two people with the same diagnosis sitting next to each other, but getting totally different IVs, as an example.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so important. Now, you mentioned magnetic fields and light therapy. So explain to our audience how magnetic fields would help the body heal and recover.
Yeah. So we have, so generally speaking, you would say a magnetic field get rid of inflammation in the body. The way it does it is the fields tend to get rid of the calcium that deposits in the tissue that's part of the inflammatory reaction. So it's when a magnetic field heats the calcium, it's practically like a solid object hitting a solid object. So someone, for example, has a lot of arthritis in a joint, they'll feel the field right in there, almost like someone's hitting it with a hammer. But say a different person with no arthritis, or that same person with another joint, let's say the other hip or knee with no arthritis, the field goes right through and they don't feel anything at all. What I always get a kick out of is we have this table, and it's, let's say, 3x6 or 3x7 roughly. It's the same field for everyone, but as different people lay on it, they feel it in a different spot of their body. And it's just kind of comical to watch all these people say they feel it in a different place. And it sometimes is an area that's damaged that they don't even know. So for someone with a tumor, let's say in their neck or some other part of their body, they may feel like a tapping or throbbing in that area as a magnetic field hits that. What's unique about our particular setup is we have the softest machines that produce magnetic fields that money could buy. We have the most powerful. So we have some stuff that's picotesla, so you can't feel anything, but essentially was designed to communicate to your nervous system, and it's approved by the FDA to reduce stress associated with different medical conditions. So a good fit for that technology was someone with anxiety or insomnia or something, with like thinking a lot. And on the other end, we have these magnetic fields that are so powerful, it feels like a jackhammer, like someone's really punching into you, even though there's nothing physically moving. It's just the energy field. And because we have such a wide range of tools, now we could find the right gadgets. So as an example, because a lot of people with cancer also have muscle disuse, the brain doesn't know how to use the muscles they have on their body. We have some newer technologies that are basically focused magnetic fields, and their only function is to stimulate all the motor units in the muscle. So we can get 100% traction. In other words, every muscle fiber in that muscle. And it's really impressive, the strength gains people get. When I tested on myself, I was doing dumbbell curls with 75 to 100 pounds in no time, and that's not normally a weight I would curl. But I started out doing 25 to 30 pounds, and as I started putting this field on my bicep, I was like, wow, I could really feel like I'm getting stronger. So I tested it, and I could grab a 75-pound dumbbell cold and curl it pretty easily. So then we tested that same technology on children that want to jump higher for basketball. So we had parents bring their kids in, and we actually showed that it can help kids jump higher by putting the magnetic fields on their different muscles in their legs and stuff. So I would use that for someone with cancer, not as a weapon to fight the cancer directly, but I would use that as a way to strengthen the muscles around their body so they can enjoy their life. So they could run and jump and go food shopping and have sex with their husband or wife and enjoy what this life has to offer them and not feel trapped because they're so weak and frail, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's such the case for so many people, especially if they're doing traditional treatments. Now, what's some of the biggest mistakes people make in their cancer treatment?
Gosh. So the first is to think that they could read about a solution on the internet and it'll work. What most people don't understand is the purpose of the internet went from education to manipulation. You type in whatever breast cancer treatment, what you're going to see is all these companies pay Google and Bing money to get rankings. So what you're getting is not insight to optimal biology. You're getting insight to which companies have the money to spend on marketing. And because of visual bias effects, the more frequently you see something, your eyes tell your brain this is safe because it recognizes the visual aspect of it. Because you see it 3 or 4 times, you now think it's accurate, even though it may not be scientifically sound. So I see a lot of people asking for individual therapies, and then it begs a logical question: how do you know that therapy will help you? And what I see is that they start making up data to justify the decision, as opposed to saying, let me measure something objectively from my body. And once I know what that finding is, now let me find the best tool or weapon to address that. It's very different than what most people do. Most people read stuff on the outside and force it on their health, as opposed to studying what's on the inside and looking for the right treatment based on those. Because doing it the wrong way, you could spend a lot of time and money going down a journey that will never work because there's not the right tool.
Yeah, people are guessing. They're guessing. And we see that all the time. Women come to us and they're taking bits and pieces of, so-called cancer experts or people who've had their own successful healing journey. And, one thing that's so important, it's got to be based, it's got to be evidence-based. It's got to, you got to have studies to back what you're doing, and you don't guess. You've got to test to see where you are. And I think that's a very important part of healing for sure. Now, one thing that I really love, and we're on the same page about this, is that mental health is the most untapped cancer treatment. I know, you on your website, you have the immunoimagery, which is basically visualization. And so explain to us how that affects your immune system and how it facilitates healing.
Well, so first, let me back up just a bit. So when we're talking with adults, usually not children, we'll ask them questions like, what is your purpose in life? And these are not normal conversations people think of having.
No, no.
What's surprising is how many people either can't answer the question, get offended, like, why do you need to know? Why are you invading my space? Type of thing. And I remind them, we're trying to make sure you live here. This is a life and death battle. Just because you don't feel pain right now and you don't feel fatigue doesn't mean the threat isn't serious. It just means it hasn't reached that threshold where you're feeling, the consequences of the disease. And what I've just kind of, if I were to draw a line and put on one side people that can articulate, why they need to be alive or why they need to live, and the other hand, people that can't, there's a huge difference in outcomes. Doesn't matter the cancer. The people that feel like they need to be here generally do much better. If I was also going to look at another aspect of it, women tend to do better than men, regardless of the type of cancer, primarily because the men push things off too long. I hear all the time from people, I don't have any pain or I don't have any fatigue or some other sort of statement like that. And the whole idea is, well, you don't want to wait until you have pain or fatigue. That means it's really serious. Why not fix the problem when it's smaller and costs less money? Why insure yourself more suffering and greater expense by waiting? What I see a lot of times is men may be the provider for the family, and they don't want to stop making money to deal with something, but they're losing sight of the fact that they're in a position to make a decision now. And if they keep pushing it off, eventually someone else will be making decisions for them. When you're over medicated and drooling on yourself, no one's asking what you want to do anymore. They're just talking about you while you're lying there. So, kind of going through some of those things with people, that takes you down different journeys. Well, one area is that, as a, you ever get confronted with something that was difficult, not necessarily life threatening, but then as you're dealing with it, you might tell yourself it's going to be okay. Or let's say a loved one, to deal with some stress and you're reassuring them it's going to be okay. And I don't see that as necessarily a negative thing or a bad thing, but now let's look at those same people 20, 30, 40 years later. And what I see happening is people they take something and they kind of sequester it or box it up and somewhere in their brain. Now, if they were talking to a psychoanalyst or behavioral therapist or someone, we'll just say more in that psychosomatic world, whatever label they want to use, they might say something like, how was your childhood? And you'll say, my childhood was fine. And say, okay, where did you go when you were upset? And you might say, I ran to the neighbor's house. And then they would say, why did you run to the neighbor's house? Well, my mom and dad were arguing and I got afraid when my dad was yelling at my mom. Then you'd say, well, that doesn't sound like everything was fine, right? It sounds like you were afraid and you were running, but you told yourself at the time everything's going to be okay. And so kind of like push this memory somewhere. And I think those memories that are, I'll just say that are not addressed and somehow, I think there's consequences. I think whether it's like, you ever see like a drop of food coloring in water, how it ripples out and gets wrong, or a pebble and there's a ripple effect. I think there's something like that. I think that there's enough evidence from the physics world that we could speculate that whether it's the vibrational frequency of different atoms or molecules, that somehow there's memories being transmitted at a level much smaller than just the organ or the tissue. So somewhere way, way down over here, information is exchanged. We just don't know exactly how it's done yet. And I think that impacts us. And how we address those things is it's going to vary a lot because it's not done. We can't see it, touch it, or feel it directly, but it's there affecting us. And I kind of have this observation that I think a lot of older adults that have cancer or have had that experience, I think there's something there that might be in a psychosomatic world. I think there's something that might be a micronutrient issue. I think there may be a pathogen. One of the things I found really interesting is most of the people that we've tested, when I say most, I mean like almost everyone, we test their germline genetics, meaning that's the genes they were born with, and we test their oncogenes, meaning the genes from their cancer. They didn't have those genes when they were born, so something happened to them after birth. Now, that's excluding, infants and children, let's say 6 and younger with cancer. Those typically have something they were born with. But it just shows you there's all this opportunity to help people, but it's in ways that we may not be able to measure directly. So then it sets the stage. If someone's helping people, are they legitimate or not, if we can't measure what they're doing?
Yeah, that's so true. And then when people can visualize a happy future and they have something that pulls them forward, that contributes to their purpose. And we know because of psychoimmunobiology that, that it affects our immune system. Happy thoughts create happy white blood cells.
Yeah. So when I was, I'm old enough that when I was in school, all the different systems were separate. And, now it's a psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology.
Right.
Everything's connected, right?
Yeah.
It's a fancy way of saying it's all connected.
It's all connected. That's right. All right. One last question real quickly. So ketogenic diet. It's the big rage. I know when I was going through my second healing journey several years ago, I dove deep into that realm of ketogenic diet. I did it hardcore, measured my fats, carbs, proteins, blood, everything. It was terrible. It was really hard to do. But I think it was good for a short-term metabolic reset for my blood sugar and, and my insulin resistance. So what are your thoughts on long-term ketogenic therapy?
Well, so one, cancer cells have this ability to adapt, and so when patients come here and we look at how were they determining an appropriate diet, typically it's based on something they read, not based on a measurement from within their body. So I haven't seen a single diet that I would say has withstood the test of time.
Exactly.
That is that cancer cells have this ability to develop a resistance of sorts. But what really is happening is that, let's say, if you follow a diet with carbohydrate on the intake side, so you're eating just pure fat and pure protein, cancer cells can upregulate the gluconeogenic enzymes or enzymatic pathways. What that means is you can take protein, break it down to amino acids, take the carbon skeleton from those amino acids and convert that to glucose. So it has its sugar anyway. Is that with fat, cancer cells can take the glycerol from triglycerides and convert that to glucose as well. But maybe on top of all that is the recent finding that some cancers actually can be killed by sugar, and some cancers thrive on oxygen. So there's two things we generally hear is that cancer loves sugar and hates oxygen.
Right.
Other types. But that's assuming all cancer is the same, and we already know that's not true. And now there's some more robust methods looking at, more complete metabolic pathways, if you will. In other words, like the whole circle, not just like one direction. And some of the more recent theories is that the reason why cancer does like sugar is that it takes that energy and it converts it into fat. The reason why it likes that is because it's so metabolically active, it needs more energy per gram in order to sustain itself. And the reason why tumor environments may have no oxygen is because as it's burning up the fat, all the oxygen. So these are more contemporary theories that kind of challenge the more classical theories. And then you say, all right, what should we tell someone to eat?
Right, right. What is the magic diet?
Right. There's data on both sides. Like, there's data supporting no sugar and data supporting table sugar as a weapon. Like, so it's really difficult to say one answer. So if I had to look at it across the board, I tend to favor more color in the diet. And the reason is I think nature is a little smarter than we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nature seems to have figured out that with color is a greater variety of compounds that appear to protect us in different ways. So we know from a lot of cruciferous vegetables have these sulfur compounds that if you have enough of them over your lifetime, the likelihood of you getting cancer is significantly reduced. And in animal studies, some of the purple pigments from different foods like purple corn and purple carrots and purple cabbage, things like that, those animals never get obese, they never get diabetes, and the rates of cancer dramatically less. So it's hard to ignore some of that. So I would tend to promote paleo type of diet for people. And in terms of if we want to lower glucose, rather than trying to use food to lower glucose, I would look at tools like alpha lipoic acid or metformin or Jardiance. Jardiance actually diabetes, anti-diabetes medication, but it specifically inhibits an area uh, that's upregulating a lot of cancers. Unfortunately, insurance won't cover it for cancer treatment, but it's within the realm of affordability for many people. And just something as simple as using that tool, it makes it so that no matter what diet you're following, you're less likely to have that diet stimulate cancer growth. So these would be some ways I would manipulate things for patients.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Dr. Tom, thank you so much for your expertise and your time with us. It's been very interesting, and we'll post your website. And if people want to find you and get more information about your clinic, where should they go?
Just go to causenta.com. That's causenta.com. And there's a form they can fill out on the website. And as they fill out that form, they get a free consult. We'll say, hey, what's going on? And here's what we can do to help you. And if they feel like it's a good fit for them, they move forward. And there's lots of free stuff they can download to help them.
Where is your clinic?
In Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, I love Scottsdale. I was just there a few weeks ago.
You have to visit. Yeah.
Well, next time, for sure. Next time I'm there, I'll definitely come see your clinic. That's awesome.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
All right. This is Dr. V sending everybody a great big heart hug. Bye for now.